King's Fall is back from Destiny 1 with a few changes, and it is one of the most enjoyable raid experiences I have had. Every encounter has an aura mechanic in some shape or form, and it follows the traditional Destiny format we all love, where each encounter teaches you something new that will help you in the rest of the encounters going forward. Until all the mechanics you've learned are happening at once and very rapidly, Oryx is just chaos, and I love it. Let's get right into the first encounter. You'll need 2 volunteers to be the relic runners. The relic runners need to pick up the relics at approximately the same time, as they'll be on a timer and need to be dunked nearly simultaneously for either of them to count. There's no harm in having more than 2 people running relics, but you can only run one from each side at a time, and the rest of the team needs to be making sure the relic runners can reach their destination back in the center. It's best to have one person on each side going in with the relic runner, as lots of ads will spawn when the relic is obtained, and several of them will be phalanxes that can eject you from the map. In addition to that, both doors to and from mid will be sealed off and need to be shot by someone not holding the relic in order to open them. So it's ideal for the remaining 2 teammates to be clearing ads in mid as well as opening the inner doors for the relic runners. Each time you successfully deposit both relics, the relics will spawn further and further inside the room, and you'll repeat this 6 times in order to progress.
Ready? What's your timer? I'm gonna extend you.
A few things to note first though, you can't double jump or glide while holding a relic.
No! I forgot I don't have a jump! Ugh!
You are able to go past the statues the relics are dunked at and take a path in the back to reach the last relics much faster, but it is also worth noting that the death plane out there is unreasonably high. If one of the relic runners is a little behind, dunking one of the relics will add a couple seconds to the remaining relics timer. I also believe the game extends the timer on subsequent attempts when you don't succeed. I've seen instances where the timer was so tight that it felt like I wouldn't make it even if everything went right, but also instances where I had so much time left that we could have stopped at Taco Bell on the way there. For those that are curious, once you've completed the first encounter, there will be a platform with a portal to the next area on it. Underneath that platform is where the symbols are that will tell you how to get the additional red border at the end. Try your best not to let impatience turn to greed on the jump puzzle.
There you go. And you're here.
Guardian down.
And before long, you'll arrive at the Totems encounter. Here, you'll be splitting into 2 teams with 3 on the right and 3 on the left, and having a relay race of sorts, taking turns holding the brands on the totems. In order to avoid confusion, it's super helpful to assign an order in which each person on each team will grab the brand, generally in the form of left 1, left 2, right 1, etc. The flow of this encounter is left 1 and right 1 start it by picking up the brand on each side. They take the brand to the totem at the end of the room. Meanwhile, back in the center room, on each platform, a wizard will spawn. Taking down a wizard will make a knight spawn. The knight will drop the next brand that the second person from each team will be picking up. Once acquired, they'll be running the brands to the totems and taking the aura from the person already on the totem. The person that was on the totem first will no longer have the aura and instead will be left with stacks of Deathsinger's power. Deathsinger's power must then be deposited at the plate in the middle of the center room. It's very important for depositing your stacks of Deathsinger's power to be top priority because you can't pick up another brand until the buff is completely gone. It's also super helpful for the people occupying the totems to communicate what their timers are at because you get stacks of Deathsinger's power from killing enemies while you have the brand. Taking the brand when they have plenty of time left means they have less stacks to deposit, and as such can make the encounter take longer. But lots of things can go wrong if you wait too long as well. Most groups prefer to let the person occupying the totem decide when the person taking the buff from them will take it. And it falls on the person taking the buff to let the person on the totem know if they're going to need to meet them halfway in order to get the aura from them before the timer runs out. You are able to step away from the totem for a moment, but if you're away for too long, it will wipe the raid. And to prepare you for worst case scenario, if the brand times out and kills the person occupying the totem, a new brand will spawn in the starting location. It needs to be absolute top priority for the people still alive on that side to grab the new brand and get to the totem. Anything other than straight to the brand then straight to the totem with it will be a restart. The last thing worth noting about this encounter is, when possible, it's best to avoid killing any mobs in the center that aren't unstoppable champions. Reason being, the adds that spawn in center go to the totems. The less of them you kill in center, the more of them make it over to the totems for the players holding the brands to farm stacks of Deathsinger's power from. Generally how I approach this is, I'll weaken things on my way back to center so that the brand holder can one-tap them. This is particularly helpful if the person taking the buff from you is playing Hunter, since they have no heal, and to those of you who are playing Hunter, don't feel bad if you have trouble staying alive on this encounter. I've seen several Hunters struggle with this. My solution when I ran on Hunter was to run Arbalest with a shotgun and swap in Healing Grenade on Solar, but you could also run Invis. With that, we move on to Warpriest. You've probably heard some horror stories about the Day 1 contest mode version experience of this boss. Thankfully, it's not like that anymore. In this room there are 3 plates, one top left, one in mid, and one bottom right. You'll want to assign a reader to each plate, and you'll also want to have 2 designated night killers for the DPS phases. The way this encounter goes is your 3 readers step on the plates to start the fight. You'll be killing adds until a yellow bar knight spawns across the room from each plate. Once all 3 yellow bar knights are down, the plate in mid becomes active. Middle plate always reads first. To determine the order in which the plates need to be activated, you step on mid plate and see which of the pillars in front of you is glowing on the front. If a pillar is glowing, that's the first plate. You step off of mid and communicate which plate comes next, who will then stand on their plate, followed by the last reader stepping on their plate.
It is right.
This is usually just a little bit faster than what you see here. Their mic cut out when they called left plate.
It's what?
Let's back up for a moment and cover a scenario where the first plate is mid, because that's what tends to cause confusion at first. When you step on mid, if both left and right are not glowing, the first plate is mid. You can see mid glowing here because the middle pillar has been destroyed, which we'll get to in a moment, but if mid pillar is still up, you won't be able to see it glow. When this happens and mid is the first plate, you step off mid, then step back on mid, and read the next plate. Some of this is process of elimination.
It is mid, I'm getting back on, it is left.
Whoever steps on their plate last gains an aura that allows anyone inside it to do damage to the boss. When a damage phase ends, any pillar with someone standing behind it gets destroyed to shield them from the wipe mechanic. My favorite strategy for this is, if left plate is last and gets the buff, everyone groups up on left, because it's definitely the most annoying plate to get to, and it's the worst spot to do damage from, so you may as well get it out of the way. When 2-phasing becomes more consistent, we probably just won't use left pillar at all anymore. For the other 2 pillars, the buff holder sets up shop between right and mid, and you duck behind a pillar before the wipe mechanic comes through. If you use this approach, it's important to establish beforehand which pillar between right and mid will get destroyed first, otherwise you'll have people behind both pillars, and you'll lose 2 pillars in one damage phase. Now let's back up a little to what's going on during the damage phase. This is where your 2 night killers come in. When the damage phase starts, a knight will spawn somewhere on the map. The player assigned to killing the first knight, instead of grouping up with the team inside the aura, will immediately proceed to hunt down the knight. The knights can spawn anywhere, but there are several indicators to assist you in finding them. Visually, the spawn animation is pretty large. If you're using a surround sound headset, the sound of the knight spawning is fairly loud and distinctive as well. And lastly, it'll be the only thing in the room firing at you other than the boss, and you can follow the bullet trails and hit markers. Once the first night killer has found and downed the knight, it will drop a brand, which is going to work just like the Totems encounter. Night killer 1 picks up the brand, regroups with the team, and steals the aura from the plate reader. While this is happening, the aura holder should be actively counting down how much time is left on their buff so that the person taking it from them can grab it at the last second, drawing the damage phase out as long as possible.
11, 10, 2, 1.
Though do be aware that the aura holder dies if the timer runs out before the aura is taken from them and the damage phase ends early. If you're on night duty and you know you're not going to make it to the aura in time, it's important to communicate to the current aura holder that they need to meet you somewhere in between. A reposition is preferable to missing 1 to 2/3 of a damage phase.
You might have to come to me. Come down. Got it. I'll come up.
I know all of that was a lot to take in, so here's a full damage phase cycle. One more thing to note is that it's super helpful to have someone on Aeons. Generally, you're going to burn through all of your heavy ammo in a single damage phase.
Don't forget to finish your powerful mobs.
Right here, we've made the call to stall out the Yellow Bar Knights to give the fire team a chance to pick up any ammo bricks they may have laying around.
It is left.
The next call was right plate, so I glance over, see them step on theirs, and then step on mine last to get the aura.
$11, 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You got it. I saw where the other one spawned. I'm gonna go kill it. That's the wizard. Countdown.
Rinse, wash, and repeat until you move on to Golgoroth. In my opinion, this fight is much more straightforward. 2 players will be assigned to gaze. These players will be responsible for swapping boss aggro. You take aggro by shooting the exposed weak spot on the boss's back. I'd highly recommend using a linear fusion or a sniper for this, as you want to be able to take it instantly. The 2 people swapping gaze generally won't be joining the rest of the team during damage phases, but we'll get back to that in a moment. To start the fight, you shoot the glob hanging from the ceiling and proceed to the back of the room to kill ads. In order to get the weak spot on Golgoroth's back to open up, a powerful wizard needs to go down. Once that has happened, the entire team rotates back to the front of the map and prepares to shoot another glob off of the ceiling. It's best to coordinate in a way where gaze and glob happen at the same time in order to maximize the amount of time the boss is facing the team. Standing in a puddle created by a glob is what allows you to do damage to the boss. The puddle does have a limited duration, but as the damage phase progresses, another glob will appear on the ceiling. You will go through 6 globs over the course of a single damage phase before Golgoroth's weak spot stops opening and the team regroups in the back of the room to kill ads and take down another powerful wizard. A few things to note: when you see Golgoroth's weak spot open back up, the current gaze holder has 10 seconds left on their timer. The boss will be constantly firing high damage Axion bolts at whoever has aggro. And of the fire team members standing in puddles during damage phases, a random player will be given a debuff that explodes and does damage around them. It won't do damage to you, but it will kill your team, and it does do damage to the boss. When you get the debuff, you'll see a green glow around your screen, and it'll be accompanied by a charging sound. I prefer to wait until I have about 3 seconds left on my timer to take the debuff over to the boss, because there is a stomp mechanic that can send you flying back into your team if you aren't careful. Here's what all of that looks like in action. This very back area is where the powerful wizard spawns. With it out of the way, we head back to the front and set up in our respective positions.
Taking. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Once gaze is taken from you, you'll be getting in position to take it back. During this transition, I tend to try to help with the Axion bolts headed for the new target. When on gaze, be mindful that the weak spot is on the front of the boss, so it needs to be facing your team standing in the puddle below.
Ten. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Three, 2, 1. His back was closed.
Repeat this process until you move on to the Daughter's encounter. Everything happening on this encounter is also part of the final encounter afterwards. There are 4 plates, 1 in each corner. 4 teammates will be assigned to their own plates, and the remaining 2 players will be floaters. It's best to have 1 floater on each end of the map. The easiest format for callouts that I've seen is the plates closest to the entrance are L1 and R1, and the plates on the other end are L2 and R2. In this run, the group wanted to label them 1 through 4, starting with close left and going clockwise. Once you've taken down some adds, a random player will become Torn.
I've got it.
The Torn player's objective is to pick up a brand. The role of the teammates occupying the platforms is to create a path for the Torn player. To do this, 2 plates need to have someone on them. The first plate is going to be the plate that has a knight and is glowing green. This is also where the Torn player is going to start from.
Starting on 1.
Once you step on the first plate, look around for an objective marker, and call out which plate it's over. That's the second plate that needs to have someone standing on it.
Going to 3.
This Torn mechanic will happen 3 times. The first 2 times, you just need to touch the objective. The third time, you'll need to interact with it.
Got it.
Let your team know when you've reached your objective, as the plates will be covered in flames shortly after, and those standing on plates need to step off. On the third cycle, once you obtain the brand, you'll be taking it to whichever daughter isn't on fire and using it to disable her shield. This is what initiates the damage phase, and everyone groups up on the ledge across from the platform you'll be shooting at.
Got it. I'm going to her. I'm taking it. I'm going to the platform.
Consensus for loadouts seems to be Gallarhorn, Div, and 4 Hotheads, but really any combination of Wardcliff Coils, G-Horns, and rocket launchers melts daughters unreasonably fast. Also, whoever took down the shield additionally used the brand to steal an aura that will protect the team from the wipe mechanic. Don't forget to stay on the platform until it's over. Repeat this process and you arrive at the final encounter. Oryx still has the plates and 3 cycles of the Torn mechanic with a bunch of new stuff too.
Hey, how you doing?
After a few adds, a knight will spawn on each plate. When all 4 knights are down, Oryx will choose the starting platform. After he slams his fist on the plate, the surface of it will turn green. Whoever is assigned to that plate will step on it to start the phase. Immediately after that, ogres will start spawning. Their spawn pattern runs clockwise, with the first one spawning at the plate that comes after the starting plate. For example, in this round, Oryx chose R1, so the first ogre spawns at R2, which is the plate I'm on, followed by L2 across from me. Each ogre will drop a bomb that will be used later to stagger the wipe mechanic and start the damage phase. You want the ogres to die as soon as possible because later on knights will spawn that try to detonate them, and the further they have to travel to the bomb, the more time you have to prevent them from wiping the raid.
I've got it. Starting at 4, going to... 2. Got it. Jump.
When the third Torn cycle happens, an invincible knight will spawn and go to the middle of the map. Whoever picks up the brand, which will be the person that is torn, is going to steal the aura from the knight and kill them. Meanwhile, this is where the bombs the ogres dropped come in. Anyone assigned to a plate should proceed to wait by the bomb in their part of the map. Stepping into the radius of it for a moment sets it off. What you're waiting for is a text prompt that says Oryx calls upon the darkness. This is the wipe mechanic. Wait until you see another prompt with your name in it, then group up in center for damage. Taipan is omega stupid, by the way. Once Oryx recovers, he'll go to center and do one of 2 things. If he flies back, it's bombs. Everyone will have bombs spawning on them, so try to avoid being near teammates, but they are stationary, so just keep running. If he stays at the end of the arena, he'll start channeling a massive orb and pull people into it one at a time. The objective once inside is to eliminate a mini-boss that does a lot of teleporting. Once the knights are dead, Oryx picks the next starting platform, and you do it all again until you reach the last segment of the health bar. When that happens, your final stand starts. Try to coordinate with the fire team whether or not the group is ready to push past that threshold. If everyone is low on heavy, which is super likely, it's ideal to stop DPS and let another phase happen to restock on ammo. Once you do push to the final stand, Oryx will go back to the end of the arena. 2 ogres will spawn on the left and right, and Oryx will initiate a wipe mechanic. You gotta be pretty fast on these last bombs.
I'll take it.
Unload everything you got, and you've cleared King's Fall. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to press some of those buttons below the video if this helped you out, and I hope to see you in there.
I got Touch of Malice again.